became the people's mayor, she didn't do what she promised.
After I went to a few meetings, I saw, boy, did we ever screw up.
So today I have a kind of a different video, but this is over the mayor of Dalton situation, Tiffany Henyard. I think this lady is such a lolcow. She has not only taken a position of power, being a mayor and a supervisor for townships, and absolutely has ruined her whole entire reputation. Henyard has been involved in numerous controversies involving allegations of financial mismanagement, corruption, fraud, and misconduct. She had been at odds with the majority of the village board of trustees. Now, she has the Bureau of Investigation, FBI, also interviewing witnesses and subpoenaing records of all of Henyard's alleged corruptions. Henyard is also under civil investigation by the Illinois Department of Human Rights and is a defendant in numerous lawsuits. So let's get into it. We're going to start in October 2020. Henyard launched her mayor candidacy. Henyard ran on a platform criticizing the incumbent mayor Riley Rogers. Henyard defeated Rogers in a four-way primary for the Democratic nomination. She defeated an independent candidate, Ronnie Burge, in April's general election, winning approximately 82% of the vote. Henyard ran with a slate that she dubbed the Dream Team. From this slate, two of the three trustee candidates were elected, Kiana Belcher and an incumbent, Jason House, as well as the village clerk candidate, Allison Key. Her relationship with these individuals would later sour. Henyard was sworn in as mayor in May 8th, 2021, becoming the first female mayor of the village, as well as the youngest in its history, being only 37 years old.
April 2021, she becomes elected mayor of the village of Dalton. She's the youngest mayor at the age of 37. She's also the first Black female mayor.
When she became the people's mayor, she didn't do what she promised.
After I went to a few meetings, I saw, boy, did we ever screw up.
So a lot of people accuse Tiffany of misusing village funds, and it really started the day she was sworn into office.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the swearing in of the Honorable Tiffany Henyard, the first female and the youngest mayor of Dalton.
The village paid for it, up to $20,000.
Faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
of
mayor.
The minute the inauguration took place, it was obvious that ordinances were not going to be followed. And then the bills started coming in at the very first meetings. And they were like, well, you're not allowed to spend this, and nobody has approved this.
As you go down Sibley and you see those banners plastered all down Sibley, and we haven't even paid for them. Who in their right mind? If you go to other towns, you might see billboards and banners, but it's of heroes and things like that in the village. It's not everywhere you go, you see the mayor. It doesn't matter where you go. Her picture is plastered all over the village of Dalton.
April 2022, roughly a year after the election, the three are joining most of the village board in pursuing legal action against Henyard. In February 2024, Fox 32 Chicago reported that numerous individuals in Dalton had confirmed to them that they were reached out and interviewed by the FBI as part of a probe into Henyard's activities as mayor. The Chicago Tribune, soon after reporting that unnamed law enforcement officials had confirmed to them that an FBI investigation into Henyard did exist. The Dalton Board of Trustees Legislative Counsel Bert Ottoson noted in April 2024 that the village government was a defendant in almost 40 active lawsuits related to Henyard's conduct. On April 19, 2024, the FBI entered the Dalton City Hall to serve subpoenas for records related to the allegation of corruption by the members of the town government.
You as both personal and in your role as mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you much. Sir.
Anytime, appreciate it. I get sued all the time. Y'all, stop it.
The first half of the year of her tenure, Henyard faced criticism from the trustees. Areas of criticism had included multiple uses of municipality funds, the lack of government transparency. Within her first year as mayor, the village board filed a lawsuit against Henyard in which alleged that she had conflicted interest. In response, she had accused set members of the board of causing an upheaval and locking the trustees out of their offices, canceling board meetings. The trustees then held meetings without her present and censured her in October 2021.
These have their pictures up inside Village Hall. You can see them, except for one. And the reason being is Tiffany Henyard had her picture removed.
We have the Honorable Trustee-elect Kiana Belcher.
During this administration as a trustee, because this is my first term, no, you're not being respected and you're not able to do your job. So my picture is not on the wall because I put her on blast. And when we came back from over the holiday, I'm sitting in the board meeting, look up, and I'm like, oh, our picture's not on the wall. I ask about the picture. Nobody seems to know what it is. I waited a couple of days, asked the employee, and the employee's like, oh, yeah, they took it down. And every time she walked past, she kick at it. Disrespect? Absolutely. But as long as I'm an elected official, I should have my picture on the wall like everyone else. So now I bring my picture to the board meeting and sit it on my podium and let people know I'm still here.
But she's mayor.
And she's a petty mayor.
She has that statement that she constantly makes.
And most of y'all wouldn't even be a trustee if it wasn't for me backing you.
No, the people put those trustees there.
She asked them to run on her ticket because she knew that the community loved Jason House. They loved Allison Key, they liked Kiana, and they were all go-getters. And they did better in the polls than she did.
There were people, you'd go to their doors and they would say, I'm not voting for her. I'll vote for you. Yeah. But I'm not voting for her.
She would not have gotten as far as she did had they not supported her, because the people like that. They like those people.
Well, let's just start from the beginning. We were locked out of Village Hall.
You don't have keys to the Village Hall?
No, we do not. We've never had keys. The clerk had keys and then they changed the locks.
And the mailboxes were moved outside, so they could not come inside.
Most of the time, they don't even give us most of the mail until after the fact, but the mailbox is outside. So it's a sense of entitlement. It's like the mayor is holding the Village Hall as her house.
I'm in my 52nd year.
What's your involvement with Dalton?
We were the village attorneys for 12 years. When Tiffany Henyard was elected, we got fired, and we were hired by the majority of the trustees as legislative counsel, which means we represent the majority of the board, which means we represent the village of Dalton. After the people got a bit of a taste of the government that they had elected in Tiffany Henyard, residents asked the trustees, what can we do? And the trustees asking us, what can we do? At that point, the only mechanism that we saw was a recall.
But Tiffany wasn't having that.
To all my residents in the village of Dalton, y'all make sure y'all go and vote no to the recall, because my work speaks for itself.
Bert, what is a recall?
A recall is a mechanism to allow people of the specific unit of government to take back what they've done. In other words, someone was elected, they're not doing the job that the people think that they should do, they're allowed to go to the ballot and recall them. Get them out of office.
Idea come from originally? Was it the board or was it a group of residents?
It was both. It was residents working with the board who said, what can we do? We're going down the wrong path. We devised the two questions and they both made it to the ballot without challenge.
They made it to the ballot?
Yeah, made it to the ballot. No one challenged it. Made it to the ballot and the election proceeded. Numbers showed almost 2,000 people voted yes for the recall mechanism. And almost 2,000 people, 1,960, voted yes to recall the mayor. Two questions, both approved.
So a majority of voters support recalling Tiffany Henyard, but it doesn't happen. Why not? It's thrown out by a state appeals court.
They found fault with the wording in the questions. They then, even after knowing what the results were, the court found it was too confusing to be on the ballot, and it didn't have the correct wording, and voided the results of the election.
The court saying that the voters didn't know what they were?
Yes.
In February 2024, the Board of Trustees adopted a resolution addressed to the Cook County State Attorney, United States Attorney of the North District of Illinois, Cook County Sheriff, and the Illinois State Board of Elections, calling for an investigation into Henyard. Henyard vetoed this resolution. Her veto was overwritten on April 8th. The trustees for the city of Dalton had claimed that the city is heading towards a multi-million-dollar deficit as a result of the reckless spending under Mayor Henyard. Numerous village residents, employees, and business owners had accused Henyard of using her position to retaliate against perceived political opponents, including alleged use by Henyard of the village police force to harass businesses whose owners were not supporting of her and extorting campaign contribution from business owners. She has also been accused of firing several village employees for political reasons. Early 2024, Redeemed Christian Church of God Resurrecting Power Assembly filed a lawsuit against Henyard and the village of Dalton, alleging that the village had discriminated against them. The lawsuit asserts that the village did not act in accordance with the zoning codes when it prevented the church from renovating a building it had acquired. In March 2024, after reviewing files obtained through the Freedom of Information request, NBC Chicago made public that Illinois' Department of Human Rights is investigating a matter against Henyard. The village of Dalton in Thornton Township, in which Henyard's former assistant alleged to have been essayed by a village trustee and subsequently retaliated against by Henyard. The investigation stems from two separate complaints about the matter. Both complaints ask the Illinois Department of Human Rights to help them to receive payback, upfront pay, attorney's fee, and punitive damages. Henyard has alleged that these allegations are false and are from disgruntled employees.
You need to address what happened in Vegas, and you have been silent. And that's not going to fly. You know what happened in Vegas.
A lot of people ask me about Las Vegas. Let me take you back to May 2023. Tiffany Henyard takes a group of 13 people on a trip to Vegas for an economic development conference. Among the people on that trip, her assistant, Fania Dukes. One night, Fania goes out to have drinks with a village official, and that's when things take a turn. There's a crime scene in Chicago on the west side, south sides. If there's someone grieving, hurting from a shooting,
we are just concerned about the child right about now.
Andrew Holmes is the person who was always there. He's standing there with grieving families. He's holding their hands. He's walking them through the process as they try to talk to media and find out who did this to their loved ones. He was always there. And he also happens to be an elected trustee in the village of Dalton. And according to Fania Dukes, who was the mayor's former assistant, Andrew Holmes assaulted her on that trip in Vegas.
Because he made everyone feel comfortable. I've even been in places by myself with him, in cars, wherever, by myself, plenty of times before ever anything. And he's never gave me an inkling of he'll harm me, will make a pass at me. He's never done any of that. So yes, I deemed his Uncle Drew, because now I feel like if I step out of here and how I know that you fight for these other people, these other victims and all of that, you have my back. I'm pretty sure I'm safe if I'm with you. And that was the relationship that he allowed me to take from him.
So on the last day of the conference, before everybody heads back to Dalton, there's a big dinner. And then after the dinner, Fania goes out for drinks with Andrew Holmes. What happens after that is detailed in Fania's lawsuit. It accuses Tiffany Henyard of retaliation, and it accuses Andrew Holmes of assault. Here's what the lawsuit says. She started to feel disoriented, blacks out. She woke up the next day in his hotel room. Physically, she was experiencing some discomfort, but she attributed it to her menstrual cycle. She didn't believe Trustee Holmes would have engaged in any inappropriate activity, and she never had any romantic or physical interest in Trustee Holmes. That same evening, Officer Byron Miles received a call from Andrew, who then began describing his exploits from the trip, many of a sexual nature. Officer Miles said Andrew then called him on FaceTime. He said Andrew had his shirt off and appeared to have exerted himself. Andrew then panned the camera toward a bed, and Officer Miles said he could see Fania Dukes in the frame, partially undressed. He says Andrew then moved the camera to various private areas of her body, displaying them on the screen and at times removing or moving articles of clothing. Officer Miles said he couldn't even tell at that stage whether Fania had consented or not, or was even capable of doing so. So after returning to Dalton, Officer Miles then calls Fania and tells her Andrew had unprotected sex with her in Vegas. So there's a meeting the next day where Fania explains what allegedly happened with Trustee Holmes. Tiffany reportedly told Fania that if this information were to get out, she would be ruined. All that she worked for, lost. She told Fania she'd take care of it, trust her. Days later, Fania was put on unpaid medical leave. She was later fired. As for Andrew Holmes, he was fired from his job as a crisis responder. but he wasn't fired from his job as a village trustee. He has not been criminally charged and declines to answer any questions about this investigation and about the allegations that Fania has made against him.
By 2022, Henyard faced allegations of spending village funds without proper approval from the Board of Trustees or the village clerk. Trustees and Henyard argued at council meetings over the city's spending. In January 2024, City Trustee Brittany Norwood expressed worry that the Dalton was heading towards bankruptcy due to the spending, noting that it was $7 million in debt. The village trustees expressed concern about the village debt and that it was not meeting its financial obligations. In February 2024, the village board of trustees, in a 4-2 vote, overrode Henyard's veto of their budget for the 2024-25 financial year, which included budget cuts. Henyard alleged that the cuts in the budget would bankrupt Dalton. In February 2024, the village was warned by KS State Bank that 13 vehicles used by the police department are at risk of repossession. Henyard argued that the village board of trustees had refused to permit payments on the vehicles, which trustee Jason Holmes refuted that such payments would have been approved by the board months earlier. One of Henyard's first actions after becoming mayor was to hire Robert Collins to serve as Dalton's police chief. Collins had previously served in this position, but had resigned the previous year. She reinstated Stephen McLean as the city's fire chief. In October 2023, Henyard fired Collins. In early 2024, Collins filed a wrongful termination lawsuit alleged that his dismissal had come without cause and without approval from the village board, and that it had been motivated as retribution for the mayor's perception of his wife and number of his personal acquaintances being political adversaries. In October 2021, the Board of Trustees voted to require Henyard to make any hiring or firing of the village employees subject to the board's advice and consent. Village trustees have accused Henyard of disregarding this and continuing to make the staffing changes without their advance or consent. September 2023, Fox 32 Chicago published an investigative report on Henyard's use of police security detail, noting that this practice cost the village hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Early 2024, Samosha Williams, who had been a candidate in the 2023 Dalton Village Trustees election, filed to sue Henyard and Henyard's campaign committee for libel and defamation. In the same lawsuit, Williams alleged that she had been wrongfully terminated from her job at the village while taking family leave in 2022. Henyard is seeking re-election as the mayor of Dalton, and that primary will be held on February 25th, 2025, and a general election in April 2025. Town of Dalton, the trustees, have decided to bring Lori Lightfoot into the picture as an investigator to investigate where all the money is gone, what happened on the Las Vegas trip, just to get answers, because the people of Dalton were upset by Fania's story of her being essayed by a trustee member. Tiffany Henyard would try to veto this, but despite her efforts, the Board of Trustees of Dalton decided to go through with having Lori Lightfoot come and investigate every piece of information, spending habits, the trip in Vegas, and every other expense that she has been doing.
The former mayor of the city of Chicago, also a former federal prosecutor, Lori Lightfoot.
People in this village want something different, want to go in a different direction.
Trustees hired Lori Lightfoot to look into Tiffany's spending habits, how she was using taxpayer dollars, and to find out what happened on that trip to Vegas.
The residents of Dalton deserve nothing less than a government that is fully accountable, responsive, transparent, and effective stewards of your precious tax dollars.
Tiffany tried, though, everything she could to prevent this investigation of her from happening.
You know, it's veto power, so how dare you think you could come in someone's town and start working or doing something, even though we said something stating it's illegal.
Even turning down Lori's mic at a meeting.
Trustee House. Aye. Trustee Holmes.
So Lori comes into one of the board meetings, right? Tiffany does not want to let her speak. So then Lori wants to address residents, and she goes to the mic, and it's suddenly cut off.
What I will say is that it's an honor to be working on behalf of the residents of Dalton. We have not rested while
You was once a mayor too. You should not even be disrespectful like that.
anyone to stop us and obstruct our ability to get to the facts. Even though they turned the mics off, we will continue working on behalf of the and we will give you the facts.
Okay, y'all done?
Did you catch what Tiffany said? She is trying to shut Lori down at a meeting. She doesn't even want her to speak.
You was once a mayor too. You should not even be disrespectful like that.
But despite Tiffany's best effort, this investigation, it continues.
2 months later, Lori Lightfoot would then reveal her findings to the Dalton Township people of what she found, and she found a whole bunch of Wayfair purchases, Amazon purchases, and Lori Lightfoot had said that the town of Dalton was now in a $3.65 million deficit.
This has been a challenging investigation, to say the least, because we have not received the level of cooperation from the mayor and her team that I would have hoped.
In front of a large group of residents, she presents her findings, and she basically says Dalton is drowning in debt.
As we mentioned, the general fund is used to account for the majority of the village's day-to-day operations, including payroll and vendor payments. The village's general fund was in a net deficit position. The village started as of April of 22 with positive of $5.6 million in the general fund, and where we are as of May of 2024, which is a negative $3.65 million.
So at that same meeting, Lori drops another bomb, and it's about the village's 6 credit cards.
We want to highlight a couple of credit card purchases. You're having the same reaction that we did when we saw that.
Lori says one credit card has more than $40,000 in charges on the same day to Amazon.
The village does not have an Amazon account. These are somebody using one of the credit cards and charging these amounts using your tax card.
It has gotten to the point where people of Dalton have also reached out to the governor to ask for intervention while Lori Lightfoot's investigation was happening and the FBI's investigation was happening. Unfortunately, the governor was like, well, if we intervene, we might intervene and affect both of those 2 investigations going on. So the governor of Illinois did not step in to help, which led a lot of people to believe that Dalton's financial situation could get worse, and a lot of financial support and things around those matters would get put to the wayside or drained by Tiffany Henyard's spending. And 2 months later, Lori Lightfoot would release her findings. And this is only part 1 that I'm making, because not only is she the mayor of Dalton, but she's also the Thornton Township supervisor. And there is even more corruption with that one, because there's just so much to cover and I don't want this to be a long video. So I will see you guys in the part 2, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Goodbye.